Welcome everybody to the Survivor Bros podcast. I'm Brennan, joined as always by my brother Tanner, but now in a new location. We just got done watching the 8th episode of Survivor 43. Tanner, how are you doing? How are you enjoying your new location, Hawaii? And what did you think of this episode of Survivor?
Yeah, so I'm currently on the big island of Hawaii. I'm LIVIN right now, just like Cody. Yeah, I just want to give a quick mahalo to our Auntie Janet for letting me stay here for a bit. It's really amazing. It's beautiful. It reminds me of Survivor so much. The nature is just absolutely off the charts. We saw some sea turtles today. That was fantastic. The only thing that's kind of a downside, not a big deal though, is the Wi-Fi can be a little bit shoddy at times. Not great connection. So if I ever start lagging or just cut out a bit, that's why. But yeah, last night we were able to watch the episode. We had some troubles with Paramount Plus. I guess there's two tiers of subscriptions, and if you don't have the higher one, then you can't actually watch the episode until the next day. So we ended up just having to watch it on soap today. But yeah, the Survivor producers don't have to know that we're not giving them money for that episode. But it was a very good episode. I think maybe it was just because I was watching with our mom and our aunt, but it felt like a kind of classic Survivor episode where you just want to sit down and watch with the family. It kind of had a chill vibe. Everything was explained really smoothly. I think they had a lot of nice transitions and segues. There were a lot of great character moments this episode. I think it was a good episode for a lot of people, actually. Like, I have maybe more winner picks than I did before the episode. We can talk about some of the people who suffered a bit. I think, James kind of got knocked a little bit off of his high horse a little bit, but he could always still recover. I think Sammy had a great episode. Jesse had a phenomenal episode. Owen had a great episode that I think, raised his Survivor GPA a little bit. And,
Transcript
obviously,
looking better.
yeah, definitely he can maybe get to the college final travel council now. But obviously we saw Janine kind of hit her breaking point. We started the episode on night 14 with Janine on the bottom again, once again wanting to cry. And, obviously we know how it turns out. But yeah, let's talk about, what do you think about Janine this season? Now that we've seen kind of her full arc from, starting out strong to risking her vote and then losing Ellie and then just never really regaining her footing. How do you feel about Janine as a player?
Well, I really feel for Janine, and actually, so I'm here in Reno, and it's been snowing recently. So actually recently just rewatched the Charlie Brown Christmas episode,
That's
and
nice.
I think Linus would say of all the Charlie Brown Survivor players, Janine is the Charlie Browniest. I mean, geez, every single time that she tries to kick that football, it just gets pulled right out from under her. And yeah, it was really tough to see her actually crying and shedding a tear, just just beaten down again. And Sammy tried to console her, but then it didn't make her feel any better, and rightfully so. And obviously, she ended up getting voted out. I want to know what you think of this vote out. What was it? Was it a good move for everyone involved? I was really surprised, honestly. I really thought Ryan was gonna go home. I thought that's what the episode was building towards. So I was really caught off guard when Janine was the one who actually went home.
Yeah, I mean, as right before Ryan's name came up, actually, I was starting to say, I think this could be Ryan's episode, just based on the way he was getting those confessionals, and his strategy just didn't really seem to be panning out. But then when people started, when the edit showed people starting to settle on Ryan as a name, I was like, okay, they're gonna throw a wrench in this plan somehow, and something's gonna shift. I guess, it wasn't that flashy that it ended up going back to Janine, but I do think that this was a smart move for most people. We'll talk about that 7 versus 4 dynamic. I think it was kind of cool to have almost like a old school kind of just one side versus another for a bit. But after this vote, I think that those dynamics are kind of over because we did see that Cassidy was the only one to side with Janine. So how do you feel about that?
I think it was a pretty powerful statement by Cassidy, actually, because I mean, I'm sure she wasn't blindsided. She knew. what was happening. And I think it was a statement by her saying, "Guys, I'm not working with Ryan. I want to get him out, so I'm gonna go rogue here."
Yeah, and we've seen Ryan, try to put a gun for Cassidy since the very beginning. So I think it's pretty cool of her to sort of take a shot back, even though she knows that that's not the way the vote's going to go. I mean, if I were her, I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about Ryan as a strategic threat. So I don't think she was put into too much danger for making that move. And if anything, it kind of separates her as someone who's willing to make big moves, even though it wasn't something that was super flashy. It showed people that she's here to play her own game. And, what we've been seeing from the Cocos so far, James and Carla are really tight. We talked about how James was kind of maybe in Carla's shadow. And, the same I think could be said for Cassidy before, but now she's starting to really separate herself. And all these players really are getting big move-itis, honestly. Like, I think Noelle had another in the preview for next episode.
In the preview, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, I think it was a solid statement by Cassidy. I think this was a good move for Cody, actually. I think Cody was one of the ones who we saw kind of hammering down this vote after people were starting to flip towards the Ryan idea. He was like, no, Janine is a really smart player, and getting rid of Ryan, maybe to some of those girls who wanted to get rid of a more physical threat, Ryan was the better option. But for someone like Cody, if Ryan goes home, then Cody becomes one of the bigger physical
Definitely.
threats. So Cody would want Janine to go home, who's, never been aligned with him, he's kind of scorned already, and who obviously, based on the way that she risked her vote earlier in the season, he knows that she's willing to play the game and she's willing to play hard.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was a good move for Jesse and Cody to get Janine out. Also, I know Sammy really wanted to break things up here and go with Ryan instead, but I thought ultimately it was pretty safe to go Janine, and it solidifies himself in the group. It doesn't, because I don't, if you shake things up this early, first of all, I mean the numbers are still really tight, so you're kind of throwing away that whole 7 thing. Then you're creating this new, what would be a majority if they pulled in not everyone else, but I think whenever that happens, the person who swaps and does that usually ends up going home. So I think it was definitely the best move for him to play it safe and go Janine here. Also, it was good to see Owen get on the bus finally. I thought Owen had a really great episode too. I know I've been really high on him. I think this was a great episode for Owen. Definitely raised his winner chances in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, for sure. This episode definitely put Owen towards the top of my list for winners right now, and I think the jury is still out for me on Sammy right now. I love him and I think he's playing an amazing game, but at the beginning of this episode, I was worried with his confessionals that, he said he wanted to control like every vote from here on out.
That was the biggest red flag for me.
Yeah, but ultimately he decided to have some self-control, which for his age, I mean, we always forget that this dude is 19.
He's younger than us.
Yeah, he could very well be the youngest winner in Survivor history, and we're sitting here watching him say, I'm going to do it, and maybe he's going to do it. And we're just going to be like, wow, good job, dude. But yeah, he just got to make sure he checks himself and doesn't make big moves just to make big moves. But also, speaking of big moves, I have to say that I was kind of wrong about Jesse after last episode. I had said that Jesse might have put himself in a bad spot by flipping on Dwight. Because we know that Dwight did trust Jesse based on the fact that Dwight gave Jesse Janine's idol.
Dude.
So now Jesse has 2 idols that nobody knows about. Jesse is just playing a phenomenal game, hands down. There's no question about it. But yeah, I mean, I thought after last episode that Jesse might put himself more in the spotlight now as a flipper and as a duo with Cody, since they flip together and people are still kind of throwing out their names together. It's always Jesse and Cody this, Cody and Jesse that. So I thought they could very well be the targets of this episode, but that wasn't the case. Jesse's playing a great social game. We saw him bonding with Carla and Owen at the beginning of this episode, which segued
Hmm.
into a nice story from Owen about being adopted and all that, which was another great confessional from Owen that helped flesh him out. But, you know, Jesse burns Dwight at the very beginning of the season, if we remember, from the Justine vote. And Dwight still trusted him enough to give him the idol.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. He has like everyone he's ever come in contact with is just fully on the Jesse train, fully in support of him. So I'm really interested to see, first of all, if he ends up giving the idol back to Cody, because I think that was left unresolved after this episode, right?
Yeah, we didn't see him give it back.
Yeah, so I'm interested to. I would love to. I mean, that would just be an amazing blindside if he pulls out Janine's idol and uses it in an epic way. That would go down in Survivor history for sure.
I want to see that so badly. And back to when he first pulled it out. It's actually in my pocket.
That
I
was
was
amazing.
If you remember Eliza's reaction to Ozzy being blindsided, like that was my reaction. I literally did that too. I was watching on my iPad. I was sitting there like in my dorm room, sitting here watching it. I was so shocked because I mean, we watch all the like the post game press and stuff, and Dwight pretty. I mean, I think he's come out in a tweet and say I didn't technically say anything wrong, but he did say that Janine did not get the idol back. I think was his wording. So I think that was really good on him for keeping that going outside the game, even after he got voted out and being a good sport about it. But yeah, I wanted to text you so bad when I saw that. I knew you hadn't seen it yet 'cause you're in Hawaii,
Uh huh.
but that was definitely a great moment. And Jesse, like you said, he's doing so well. I mean, now he's got two idols. I mean, I don't. The thing is, I don't think Cody is like gonna ask for it back because I mean, they're really tight. Like you said, everyone talks about them together, so that's kind of just like their idol together anyway. But now that he has another one, I mean, we could get a great. There's been so many great moments with two idols being played, Malcolm Parvati, all that stuff. It definitely
Yeah.
could be a great moment, and obviously, it's the only one because I'm sure people know about Carla's idol by now. So it's the only one that people don't know about, and with the knowledge is power out there, it's even that much better. But
Yeah. I'm really waiting for the show to address this whole Carla situation. It must be coming soon because people have obviously got to figure out this Beats twist. Um, but yeah,
I
I
just
think
have to
we.
assume they know.
Yeah, for sure. But we could have a very interesting tribal coming up. Maybe three idol plays. I don't know. I'd love to see Jesse stand up and play one for himself, and then just be like, you know what, Jeff? I'd like to increase our odds, and then play one on Cody.
That would
That
be
would be
so.
awesome.
I would hate to see green bananas turn yellow without my little villains around. But so many classic,
Exactly.
great moment. And like you said, Jesse. I mean, everyone seems to love him. Him and Carla are the two people that everyone seems to be really close with, and everyone seems to love. And when he was talking with Janine and Gabler after the vote and Owen, he was saying how he said how Jesse and Cody flipped. So I thought they're gonna say, okay, they're flippers, let's go after them. But nope, nothing. And we saw him being close with Owen. I mean, we saw him being close with everyone. I think Jesse is. I think him and Carla top two games for sure so far. Uh, Honestly, by a little bit. And then there's Owen and some others, but I think he's phenomenal so far.
Yeah, Jesse and Carla both. I mean, if I was on the islands, I would want to be aligned with them. They're so cool. And Carla is just playing such an awesome, level headed game right now. She had a nice presence in this episode, even though she wasn't really calling shots. She was very much in the throes of, deciding which way this vote was going to go. She was
Hmm.
one of the biggest voices out there, and people don't seem to realize that, I think. I think people are just kind of letting her talk them into things, letting her just kind of be chill, and especially with James, we saw James had another. I want to mention how at the beginning of this episode, James said that he wanted to target Owen because Owen's a flip flopper. And so it's just yet another thing that we've seen from James, as I've been saying in like every episode of this podcast, is that his whole thing is having like a solid alliance and just powering through with people. And he might be in Carla's shadow right now, but that works to Carla's advantage.
It's definitely part of the one reason it feels like an old school season with that wanting to keep the big group together. You don't really see that very much.
But I'm so torn on James's comment at the challenge today.
I thought that was really horrible. I mean, it was even it made no sense. I mean, why would Owen be safe? He just voted in the minority twice. You're just saying, hey, I'm targeting you. I hope you don't win immunity. That's literally what you're saying. I thought that was really bad.
I would say that the one silver lining here, in regard to James playing sort of a level-headed, loyalty-based game, is that he's at least proving to the jury down the line that he can lie, and that he's, not just playing it safe all the time. He's like, I'm just gonna, if I see a chance to get my target to sit out of immunity, I'm gonna do it, just because it might not work, but it might work.
James, because one of the reasons why I think Owen looked a lot better from this episode, and James looked a lot worse, is because we had James say, "Oh, he's a rat, he's a flip flopper, he's sleazy, all that stuff," and then he had the comment at the challenge. But after he says the negative things, we see Owen's perspective, and it's all positive, and the show is painting Owen in a positive light, and James in a bit of a negative light. So I think James is going to get his comeuppance. And especially in the preview, like I said, red flags with Sammy, even bigger with James. He literally said, "I'm like the Godfather. If you go against me, you're gone." And I don't think that unless you're Boston Rob, that just doesn't work out. I don't think that has any type of merit of a strategy. And I think Owen is going to get his revenge on him pretty soon.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that thing about the Godfather, I just heard Gabby's voice from David vs. Goliath saying, "Who does he think he is? The freaking Godfather?"
Yeah. I was thinking of Carl, yeah.
Yeah, that strategy, of course, as we saw in David vs. Goliath, it just doesn't really pan out for the Godfather type figure. And it's nice to see James getting, I guess, kind of a villain arc here, but I'd still like to see James be successful because I do really like James and I've been high on him all season.
Definitely.
It could just be kind of a little rut in the road for him. Maybe he'll still climb up in the rankings, and I think he's still a contender for sure. He needs to get out of Carla's shadow. He needs to fix things with Owen for sure because that was just bad. It was literally just bad, and he needs to start playing a more, I want to say, diverse game in terms of the people he's playing with, because he seems to be really, really banking on that 7. And, like I said earlier, I don't think that 7 is going to last much longer.
Neither do I. I mean, we already saw Sammy's like, that is not how this game is going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's right.
But speaking of David vs. Goliath, we had almost got a moment that reminded me of that Angelina sitting out to get rice for the tribe. But we had Jeff instead.
In case you forgot, guys, I sat out to get the tribe rice.
Yeah. You might need to say it another 5 times to make sure.
Yeah, what did you think of that moment? I thought Carla did a really good job. I thought her and Jesse were like, "Oh, my hand's busted up, I can't do it." I thought that was really cool. Sammy obviously gave that little speech. Also, Noelle was about to step forward. What did you think of that? Because she's in the minority.
I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that. I actually thought that she was stepping forward, and then Jeff said that it was Cassidy, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, we got Sammy, Jesse, Carla, Cassidy, and James sitting out.
All members of the 7.
Yeah. I guess Noelle, she knew that she wasn't the target because Owen was the target, and I figured that if Owen wasn't the target, then maybe Gabler would be next, and obviously Janine. So I guess Noelle was like, if I can curry favor with these people any way I can, then I'm just going to do it. And she was hungry, probably.
Yeah, everybody's hungry, and we saw that whole montage of people talking about, what was Ryan talking about, putting pizza over a burrito? Man, I mean, you got to be a different level of hungry to start imagining stuff like that. And we had Carla's dream sequence. What do you think of Carla's dream?
I love that actually. I was a huge fan of that. I thought it was a great camp life moment. I love seeing, Survivor is so strategy heavy in these modern seasons. I love seeing chill moments where we get to see these characters who we've gotten to know and love over the past 7 episodes just interacting with each other. And I like just watching them interact with each other because I like them as people and I like them as players. And, obviously Carla dreaming about Jeff, like having a chicken eating contest and taking a selfie or something.
And making
That was just
ramen or
amazing.
something, yeah.
Yeah, that's classic. And then I thought it was really nice how the editors used that as a segue to talk about food, which they then used to transition into the challenge really nicely.
I thought
I
they
thought
might do a
that
food challenge.
that would be
Like,
interesting.
like a,
Disgusting foods after imagining all the food that they want. But yeah, I think the editors told a really cohesive story this episode, and I was a huge fan of that for sure. And I love the camp life moments.
Yeah, definitely a lot of camp life in this episode, and I'll keep saying it. Another reason why it feels like an old school season. We had also like the painting of the flag. That was another cool thing.
That was
Um,
really cool.
yeah, then all the food, and I mean, even like I can only imagine because even as someone who's here like in college, like a broke college student, I fantasize about having the food that I'm gonna eat when I go back home all the time. So I can only imagine out there. I get it, man. Um, Speaking of food, though, Ryan caught not 22, 21 fish. Like, he's looking like Rupert out there.
Yeah, I mean that's like enough for them to each have 2 fish in a day. Like that's pretty good.
In one day.
In the past 2 seasons, we had people who were going days and days without eating. And if I recall correctly, I think one of Shan's biggest downfalls in season 41 was the fact that she just became so starved and so out of it, and she started fighting with
Yeah,
Ricard over
I
stuff like
remember that
food.
comment over about the reward thing.
Yeah. Maybe if she had Ryan catching her 2 fish a day, then she wouldn't have deteriorated like that.
I mean, did even Ozzy catch that many fish? I mean, that's insane.
I don't even know. Yeah, that's crazy. That he also had a really nice personal story this episode. I didn't think it was too much overkill. We've been seeing a lot of like the personal kind of like sob stories lately this season, but I thought it was a nice one with Ryan talking a little bit about his cerebral palsy and how he
Yeah.
thought he was told that he was never going to be able to walk, and that he overcame that. And not only that, he's now the biggest provider on a show that's extremely physically demanding. And I think that's really good on him, even though his strategic game isn't necessarily the best right now. Another old school element that we're seeing. He genuinely thinks that being the provider will get him to the end of this game. And, good for him for
Yeah.
adding some different type of gameplay to the show. We also actually saw Gabler at the beginning of the episode say, I'm going to try to curry favor with these people by helping Brian catch some fish because I was on the wrong side of the last 2 boats. And I don't think that necessarily worked at all for him, but at least he tried.
At least you're right. That's all that matters. And I think Ryan did mention in his pregame that he wanted to be like Rupert, like a provider. Um, the thing is, I'm just not sure. I don't think that's gonna work out. I mean, we even saw Carla saying like, "Dude, what are you doing? I mean, you come back to the beach. We need to talk, bro. Like
Yeah,
this isn't
dude.
season 7."
Yeah, she had a really funny confession where she's like, "Where's Brian right now? I bet he's fishing right now."
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Carla had a interesting callback to her finger injury when she was talking about how she was going to sit out the challenge. She's like, my finger's busted up, so I
Yeah,
can just sit out because I probably can't do this anyway. Do you think that was really true on her part, or do you think that was a strategic comment?
I think it was more strategic than anything. And Jesse said that he said like my hand is swollen too. I think that was
Oh, I
his.
didn't even catch that.
Yeah, yeah. He said it wasn't as loud, but yeah, he's like my hand's swollen. I can't do it too. I'll step forward. I think that was really smart because I mean you don't want to obviously make it look like you're too comfortable. You're like, oh, I'll just sit out this challenge. It's no big
Yeah,
deal. So
exactly.
so if you have a reason, I mean that's perfect right there.
Yeah, I mean these social players get having their cake and eating it too. Getting in good with the majority, getting to sit out, get food, not being in danger, having people think that they don't feel too comfortable as well. It's pretty good deal for them.
So, what did you think of the actual challenge? Owen ends up winning. We had Ryan with that. I thought Ryan was gonna win with that strategy where he was like leaning it against his face. It didn't
Yeah, it
work
was
out,
just
but
leaning too far.
I thought that was gonna be on Survivor Players Hacking Challenges 10.0 or whatever. Um,
If it had worked out, it would have been. But yeah, we had a nice showdown between Owen and Cody, and I wasn't really sure who I was rooting for because I love Cody, but at the same time I was like, man, Owens really needs this, and I'd like to see him clutch
yeah.
this out, and he did. He had a great moment. He had a good speech with Jeff too. He got a hug from Jeff. That was nice.
I always think about that. That would be the best feeling ever, getting that
Yeah.
necklace put around your neck. And I think I'd say the exact same thing. He mentioned Terry Dietz, Kelly Wigglesworth. Who was the other one that he mentioned? Colby
Colby,
Donaldson.
yeah.
That
Old
that's how
school,
you
baby.
know. Yeah, that's how you know Owen's a real fan. I mean, you don't see a lot of these other people talking like that.
Yeah, and
Uh,
even back to the premiere when Owen had that confessional about wanting to see his name in the opening credits,
yep. Uh huh.
and they did that. They actually put his name over that. That was so cool.
That was a great moment. Yeah. Yeah, I think Owen, he's having a lot of these great moments that show he's a really good fan. And like I said, a great episode for him. Really raised his winner equity in a lot of people's eyes. Um,
Why do you think that Sammy didn't tell Owen about the vote for the Dwight vote? Because we saw him giving damage control to Owen and Janine at the beginning, saying now he just found out at the last minute that everyone was flipping and that the vote was going to be Dwight regardless. But
it's
he could have just
it,
told Owen, I think.
it sounded like he was saying that there just wasn't enough time. Like he was told like 10 minutes before tribal or something. He just didn't have time to tell him. That's what it sounded like. I mean, he didn't say that.
Do
We
you
didn't
think
see
that's
that.
like the truth if that's what he's saying? Or do you think he's just
I
saying that
don't
to
know. I mean, because obviously Sammy wants to be like he wants the group to be in favor of him. So if he did tell Owen, it then maybe Owen tells Janine, and it gets back to Dwight or whatever, and Idol gets played, then it kind of messes everything up, and Sammy looks like a bad guy flopper. So I think it may have been a strategy. I don't know, but
yeah.
it sounded
Either,
like there was just not enough time.
either way, Sammy's definitely doing a good job of covering his bases. And I think he should be seen as much more of a threat than he is, but he's not. So props to him. And
Hmm.
speaking of staying under the radar, we had Gabler tonight talk about how as long as my name doesn't hit the parchment, I'm moving forward. That was an interesting strategy. I thought that was a good call by him. He doesn't want to upset too many people and make too many waves this early, especially because he was such a force behind the Ellie vote. He kind of put himself into the spotlight right there to his detriment, as we discussed. And now he's kind of playing damage control. He still seems to be on the bottom, but I'd like to see him scrape his way up, especially after last episode with his great story. I'm much more invested in him as a person now. So there's definitely hope for Gabler yet.
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, the alligator he's underwater right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, he does get to resurface. But yeah, I think under the radar is the right thing for him. And he said he made a comment like I'm just seeking safe harbor or something. I just want to be on the right side of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Like Owen said too. I just want to be on the bus, and he was. So hopefully, it's a sign of good things going forward for the alligator.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people think that Survivor is about being in control all the time, but it's not. Sometimes you really have to know when to just bite your tongue and go with the flow because you know that it's not going to be you and you're going to have a chance to reorganize the dynamics later on.
Definitely, it is sometimes just as important the things you don't say as the things you say. Really.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to talk about in this episode?
So we talked a little bit about the preview, but next week on Survivor we saw the James Godfather thing, and we saw Noelle saying, "I woke up this morning, I wanted to make a big move," and she has her steal a vote. Next week I think we're getting the same two tribal councils, 5 each. So if she has a steal a vote, that could be dangerous for somebody. That could be pretty interesting. if she does decide to use it.
Yeah, steal about on a 5-person tribe is pretty game breaking right there.
Yep.
So I like to see what she does with that. Hopefully she doesn't take out one of our favorites, but yeah, I mean she honestly is one of my favorites. So, but honestly, I mean like everyone this season is one of my favorites. There's really no one who I dislike this season, and that's what makes it so enjoyable. Is that we spent so much time, especially going back to the first 2 episodes when they gave us more airtime. They spent so much time fleshing out these characters, and now it's just so fun to watch them. And we're only on episode 8, so we still got a few more. Knock on wood. Hopefully, there's no like surprise like Dan situation where it just ruins the season.
Jeez.
So bad.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna manifest.
Don't even. Yeah. God forbid.
Yeah. We'll have a strong finish for Survivor
40. There you go. Put it into the universe. But I think you're right. This cast is amazing. I love it, honestly. I mean, we don't need to get into it too much, but I think I've seen a little bit of hate on the season just because of the boot order and all that stuff. But I mean, to me, it's like, who do you want to go? I mean, everyone is so interesting. So there's really no one that there's no one that I'd be happy to see leave the island. So it's not a big problem for me, and I think this season is like the mailman Karl Malone. It's delivering every week. I love tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Every vote off, I think it's sad. It's a little bit sad, but it's also satisfying. It really is.
Yeah. Well, that being said, thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back next week to recap the 9th episode of Survivor 43. We hope you join us. But until then, keep talking Survivor, bros.